we've seen a huge upsurge in protests all over the country. The primary reason for that is the pandemic. Schools are closed. People don't have jobs. The economy is shut down. There's a lot of people that are sitting around their houses all day, bored and angry and worried about paying their bills and already facing a huge amount of economic anxiety. And so something like this happens. They're living in terror of police. People are being harassed by police. We know because of this pandemic, and the rage is building up, and the rage is building up. They see that video, they're ready to go out and protest, right? And it's not like they're going to do something else because the economy is shut down. And so this is like a powder keg that has been lit. And you'll notice Trump immediately approached this with a conciliatory approach. He said, "Oh, I'm so outraged. I'm going to have a federal investigation." That was the Trump approach, the Democrats were immediately sympathetic. Everyone just condemned the cops immediately, but the protests spread, and they spread, and they spread. And at this point, there are protests that have happened, for 4 nights now, right? As we're speaking tonight, I guess I'll start with New York City, right? I understand that right now, even though it's well past dark here in New York City, it is well past dark in New York City. There are protests in Flatbush. There are police cars that have been burned in Flatbush. There were a number of arrests on the Brooklyn Bridge here in Brooklyn. And things are apparently pretty rough. I tweeted out some video that surfaced from here in Brooklyn of things going on. Now, earlier there were demonstrations during the day in Manhattan. And they were pretty calm from what I understand. I mean, they did take the street, unpermitted marches on the street, but the police kind of held their hands off and the protesters marched. There were protests in Queens that were the same kind of way, where the protesters took the street, they protest, but there wasn't, pushing and shoving with the police. There weren't any arrests. It was pretty calm. However, now I did hear reports from Pittsburgh, and there were protests in Pittsburgh. Again, you don't hear about protests in Pittsburgh very much. Pittsburgh is, it used to be a big steel town. It's, deindustrialized. Great museum there, the Andy Warhol Museum. There's some theater there and stuff, but there's not much in Pittsburgh. But there were big protests in Pittsburgh. And from what we understand, the police cars that were burned in Pittsburgh, from people who were at that protest, they told me it was very obvious. It was very, very obvious that it was not protesters who burned those police cars in Pittsburgh. They said that those police cars, they told me those police cars that were burned in Pittsburgh were burned by undercover officers, that it was provocateurs. And I'm getting similar claims from around the country. People I've been on the phone with around the country who've been at protests have been telling me that police cars are being lit on fire. That's really happening, but it's not protesters doing it. There are these people from among the crowd who don't look like protesters and look a lot like cops, who go and light these things on fire. And people are saying provocateurs, provocateurs, provocateurs. There's a lot of provocateur activity going on right now. And that's what I'm seeing. And that's what people are telling me, that there is a lot of things being burned, buildings being burned, and police cars being burned, and it's not protesters who are doing it. It's undercover police officers. And that's very scary, folks. That is extremely scary.